Right. Well, while we talk about COVID-19, one of the many challenges is the issue of children at home, no school. The concept of homeschooling is not new to Trinidad and Tobago. It's not the more popular form of education, though, but COVID-19 is forcing many of us to gain new skills rapidly, including a more hands-on role in our children's education. Well, we're now joined by someone who knows a lot about homeschooling children, both because she's experienced in homeschooling and she's experienced in having children. She has 8 of them. She's entrepreneur Nikki Rodriguez. She joins us via Zoom to share some tips with parents who may be struggling in this area. Nikki, thanks very much for joining us once again. So let me just make clear.
My pleasure. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning, Fazir.
8 children, you and your husband, that's 10 of you all. You're not in violation of the rules, right?
Absolutely not. We are in our own domain. We are not in a public space.
It's good that we make that clarification. Tell us about this, because I know you've been on this show many times in other media as well, talking about different seminars, family issues, focusing on family priorities. Let's talk about the challenges of homeschooling, which is virtually mandatory given our COVID-19 situation.
Right. Well, as you just mentioned, I'm a homeschooling mother of 8 and an entrepreneur. I've been homeschooling for the past 11 years. April gone was 11 years since April this month, sorry. So I'm losing track of the time. I don't know if anybody else is like me, but we're losing track of the days. So this month makes it 11 years that me and my husband have been homeschooling. What we would suggest at this point in time, okay, everybody is now forced to have their children at home. It's just like the virus, it's a whole novel thing for many people, simply because most parents will take their children out to school. What people are doing now, Fazira, I have to make the point. Most people are seeking to school their children at home, which is different from homeschooling. So while, yes, we do academics, etc., and we do push that aspect of it, homeschooling is a little bit different. What parents are doing now is trying to see how best they could keep their head above the water, keep their children still motivated educationally, etc. I know a lot of schools are sending work via the media, via the internet, etc. for students. That is good. I do applaud the efforts of the schools. I do applaud the efforts of the parents who are really trying to make the best of a very difficult situation. But I still want to make the point, it's still different from what we do as homeschooling parents.
I'm glad you made that point, because we might think of it as one and the same thing in this sense. To you, because you're very experienced in this regard, what is the fundamental difference about homeschooling per se as against teaching schoolwork from home?
Okay, well, homeschooling, because I did the first thing when I first started many years ago. I was doing the schooling at home. I basically brought the classroom at home. So I had the children, I had an 8-by-foot blackboard in a room that I had at the back of the house, the annex. And I had tablet chairs and everything. I basically brought the classroom at home. But homeschooling in its essence is really where life is the classroom, and you allow all the opportunities that present itself through life to teach, to make teachable moments. So simple things like going to the grocery store, going to run errands and stuff. My children come along with me. Even when I go on business trips from time to time, we schedule it in such a way that each child gets to come on one business trip with me for the year. So all of that is part of their education, even in terms of filling out their documents at the bank or filling out their documents when they have to travel, the departure card and stuff. All of that is part of homeschool, is part of education. It's not just relegated to the pages of a textbook. And so while that is important and we do those things, we don't follow a local curriculum, by the way. But while those things are important and we do those things, that is not the be-all and end-all of our children's education. It's one of the reasons why we took them out of the system, because we wanted them to be educated holistically, not just for the sake of passing the next exam.
I hear you on that, and I know that's a bigger discussion that maybe we could develop at another time, maybe post-COVID-19, whenever that is, if that is ever going to be. But because, as you encapsulated it perfectly, the fact is that parents have now brought the school, the classroom into the home, copying the syllabus, trying to do the what advice would you give them in managing that situation? I know it's not homeschooling per se in what you've identified, but what advice can you give?
I would suggest that, yes, get the classwork or the schoolwork done, whatever the teachers may have forwarded to them. Spend that time with them, make sure the children stay okura with what needs to be done. but don't use this opportunity that we have as parents and as families to be at home with our children to just be about beating books and preparing for SEA whenever that takes place, or CSEP whenever that takes place. Let's use this opportunity, as I said in my blog, to really just stop and smell the roses, to reboot, to recharge spiritually, emotionally as families and stuff, and just to reconnect. You know, the schoolwork and stuff. I remember a couple of years ago when my mom had a massive stroke, I was unable to do schoolwork with my children for an entire term because I had to spend that time taking care of my mother. And that was the time that I also had baby number 7. So imagine having a 5-week-old baby and a mom that you have to take care of at the same time. Nothing got done in terms of academics with me teaching my children. But because they were independent enough, they knew what was happening, they were mature enough to do work on their own. And then, you know, for zero at points in time when work couldn't be done, what their learning was taking care of the elderly. I mean, my mother, their grandmother is not an old person. She's in her 60s. But still, when you have a massive stroke, you become incapacitated. So they learned things like that. They learned how to take care of a newborn. They learned how to lend support. And those things can't be taught in a classroom. So I want parents, yes, you know, to teach whatever is given by the teachers, but let's not spend the entire time just doing that. Let's spend some time just really reconnecting with our children and discovering what their passions are. I mean, you know that I have several entrepreneurial children, and during this time, for example, we were able to look and see, okay, there's need, and one of their businesses, which was body scrubs and body butters and tote bags and wall art, none of those things were selling. And what we were able to do was to look at the need that existed, and she started to make a line of hand sanitizers that did phenomenally well. When we could not get the ethanol or the rubbing alcohol to make the hand sanitizers, guess what? We realized that because I have this series of workshops that I do for teens and for children called Gifted Hands, where I teach them skills outside of academics, life skills that they could put to good use and probably monetize. I had a whole lot of fabric. I am not a seamstress, but I know my way around the machine. I don't normally sew at all, but I have sewing machines. I was teaching these classes and I was getting back into the groove because I had to prepare for the class. And we realized, plus we had fabric from her tote bag stash because I taught her how to sew to make tote bags. And we had all this fabric there, and then there was this need. People started to call us and ask us if we are making face masks. And we're like, no, we're not making face masks. But after the 4th phone call, I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? First of all, aren't we supposed to be inside? But then I'm realizing, okay, people need this, but then if we have the fabric, someone blessed us with the notion, which is the elastic and stuff. And there you go, Fizzy turned that into a business as well. So she has 2 additional product lines now in her company. So it's about looking at life and assessing as you go along. Yes, as I continue to say, I will always reiterate, academics is important, but there is more to life than academics.
So as life,
so much.
Yep.
And I want parents to use the opportunity as well to get to know your children. Okay, we're all at home. Nobody's rushing off to go to work, to go anywhere. So we're all at home. One of the things my children can do, I've always brought them into the kitchen with me when I'm cooking and baking. You know, one daughter has a cupcake business coming out of it. But that same daughter loves the kitchen so much that yesterday I was able to take a day off and just relax, and she took care of everything. When I left to go out and see, she's like, no, mommy, go back to bed. I'm good. And she was able to take care of whatever needed to be taken care of. So all of this time, parents could look, they could see where are their children's natural inclinations, because many times they miss things in the hustle and bustle of life, in picking up and dropping off from here to lessons to extracurricular activities. Now everybody has to slow down. Everybody literally has to stop and smell the roses. And it's a great opportunity to reconnect with your children, see where their passions are outside of academia, and tap into those things now. Do some crafting projects, some art things, and, you know, just enjoy each other's company.
So while life gets increasingly busy at the ever-expanding Rodriguez group of companies, based on what you're saying, just remind people of the blog and where they can go to get these tips and bits of advice that you have on your blog.
Okay, sure. Well, I have the blog. It's called Chronicles of an Outnumbered Mom. That's outnumbered 7-2. I started it when we had baby number 7, and I thought we were finished, right? So it's outnumbered 7-2, 7, number 7, TO, then 2, at WordPress.com, right? That's outnumbered 7-2.wordpress.com. Sorry, Chronicles of an Outnumbered Mom. And I also started a podcast recently at the beginning of this year. So that has been doing really well, because the name of that podcast is Homeschooling Matters. So if they just Google Homeschooling Matters podcast, they will be able to find me there. It's actually on Anchor, it's on Stitcher, it's on Spotify, Castbox, and a whole lot of other podcasting platforms.
And in the time that we have available, Nikki, what would you say to those parents who are saying, I hear you, Nikki Rodriguez, about real homeschooling, but right now I have to face reality. When this is over, when the restrictions are relaxed, it's back out to school, so it's better for me to keep them in that school type setting because they're going to get back out there anyway, because I'm not in a position to do the full homeschooling thing. What would you say to those parents in a situation like that?
I would say that the crisis right now is not one that's educational, really and truly. And we have to also understand that our children, they are humans as well. They are tiny humans that may have issues. They may not tell you everything that they're going through. They may not say, okay, I'm scared, or I feel a little volatile, or, I'm anxious, mommy or daddy. But they have their own things that they're processing at this time. There's a lot of uncertainty for them as well. So while, yes, you may want to make sure they keep up to mark and up to par with what they're supposed to do, please give them that opportunity to just be a child and to just be a human and to have feelings and emote whatever they may be going through, because it's hard on everybody, even as a homeschooling family. And yes, we usually at home, it's hard on us too, because my 5-year-old said to me the other day, he said to his father, he said, Daddy, can you please pray for this crazy coronavirus to go? And the next morning, that's when Daddy was putting him to bed, and the next morning when he got up, he says, Mommy, is it gone? I was like, is what gone, honey? He said, is the crazy coronavirus gone? I said, well, no, not yet, but by faith it will go soon. And then he's like, okay, but can we go for a nature walk? We can't. So simple things that we were also able to enjoy, we no longer have that freedom. So while being at home is our normal, it's our normal, but still the freedom, just like everybody else's freedom has been encroached upon. Ours is the same thing. So allow the children the space. If they don't feel like doing work one day, give them that time. They will not die. I often share this very quick testimony. That same term, that was the beginning of the academic year 2016, 2017, September to December, when I was able to do no work with my children because I was busy with my new baby and my mom being sick. That was the year when my son decided he was going to write CSEC, and he was 14 years old at the time. So I signed him up. It was a whole story, but I signed him up. He was able to manage to write it in January of 2017. And he was not, as I said, we don't follow the local curriculum, but even without me being there, he got all his passes and started tertiary level institution that the following year, 2017, at the age of 15, he had just turned 15. My daughter prepared her to do SCA. That didn't happen. We don't prepare our children. We just have them write some past papers, and wherever they're weak, we teach into that. And she wrote the exam the following year as well, in 2017, after all that drama. And guess what? She still passed for a top school. So the children are very resilient. I need parents to remember that. And once we give them that assurance, we try to calm their anxieties as best as we can, they will do fine. They will overcome this. We are the ones, I think, that put a lot more pressure on them, and we cause the anxiety that's unnecessary. Just give them a time, give them their space, let them be children, and they'll do well. They'll do well. I understand wanting to keep the momentum, keeping the discipline and so forth, but let's not overdo it, because the crisis is not really only about education at this time. The crisis is really the virus and the havoc it's creating throughout the world.
Indeed it is. Well, Nikki Rodriguez, we want to thank you for taking the time to give us some context. I think it's important that we not just try to present that rigid idea of creating the school environment at home. As you mentioned, it is about the real sense of homeschooling and the issue of parenting, and that essentially what it comes down to. Thanks very much once again for taking the time, and the children not bouncing off the walls behind you, which is good that they're being taken care of as well. And we do appreciate you taking the time to chat with us this morning.
My pleasure, Fazir. Thank you. Blessings to Trinidad and Tobago.
I want to be